Setting up CentOS Linux VM on VirtualBox. In this section, I'm going to show you how you can download, install, and configure CentOS Linux on top of VirtualBox. Hadoop best runs on Linux, so we need a distribution of Linux. There are several distributions based on the Linux kernel. You have the CentOS distribution, Ubuntu distribution, Red Hat distribution, and there are many others. We will be using the CentOS distribution in this class. If you want to get more information about CentOS distribution, you're welcome to go to this Wikipedia link and learn more about the complete history and the various releases of CentOS. Downloading CentOS. There are several public mirror sites available for CentOS. All you need to do is go to Google and search for CentOS mirrors. You'll get the mirrors link. But for your convenience, I have put together a link here. CentOS.org/download/mirrors will take you to a page that has a list of all the CentOS mirrors from where you can download the operating system. Pick a mirror closest to you, navigate to 6 or more importantly the 6.5 folder, ISOs folder, and then inside it the i386 folder to download the 32-bit version of the CentOS operating system. We will be using the 32-bit rather than the 64-bit. This is the file that you're going to be downloading, CentOS.6.5.i386-bin-dvd1.iso, and the file is about 3.6 gigabytes. Let's quickly take a look at it. Click on CentOS. There's the CentOS page. Let's go to the North America links. There it is, Oregon. Click on it. Scroll down. Go to the 6.5 release. Inside it, go to the ISOs folder. Go to the i386 folder. I like to sort it by size. What we really want to download is the ISO 386 bin, which is about a 3.6 gigabyte download. Fortunately, I have already downloaded the ISO file right here, which I'll show you as part of the installation process. Okay, so what are the steps to install the guest CentOS operating system? Basically, all you need to do is launch your VirtualBox and then execute the following steps. These are high-level steps that I'm going to give you. We'll go through the screenshots first, and then I'm going to show you a live demonstration of the installation. First, you create a new machine in your VirtualBox. Then you mount the ISO image CD, which is the .iso file that we downloaded. Then you boot the VM from the CD. Then you install the guest operating system. And then you also install the VirtualBox guest editions, which allow you certain privileges. It allows you to communicate between the guest operating system and the host operating system, port forwarding, USB sharing, and so on and so forth. Launch VirtualBox. Click on the new icon. That takes you to a window. Here you give the name of the VM, which is HT server, Hadoop server. We are saying it's a Linux VM, and it's going to be a Red Hat 32-bit VM. Now it's asking you how much memory we want. We want it to be 2 gigabytes of RAM for the VM, so 2048 is the value that you should enter for the memory size. It's asking you, do you want to create a new hard disk, a new virtual disk for the VM? You say yes, and so you continue. Take the default. Take the default on the VirtualBox disk image. It's asking you whether you want a dynamically allocated storage or a fixed storage. We want a dynamic storage so that it grows rather than allocating as part of the VM. How much storage we want? We want about 20 gigabytes of storage for the VM. There's a summary screen over here, and then you click on create. Once you click on create, it should create the shell VM for you. So it has created a shell VM. it doesn't have the actual operating system on it, which is the next thing that we need to do. In order for you to do that, you can select the VM and click on the settings on the top, or you can right mouse click and get to the settings page. That's going to launch you the settings window. Here's the settings window for the VM. Shows you the general settings over here. What you want to do is click on the storage so you can mount the CD. When you click on storage, notice it shows you a CD which is empty. You can mount the virtual CD to the ISO file, which is what we are going to do. So there's a little CD icon over here to mount it to the ISO file. Once you click on the CD icon, it'll show you a file explorer. So you can navigate to the downloads folder and select the ISO file that you downloaded for the Linux operating system. Once you do that, you will notice that your storage CD has now the CentOS 6.5 32-bit operating system mounted. Hit OK. Now you attach the CD to the VM. So all you have to do is boot the VM by clicking the start button or double clicking on it. You may lose your mouse for some time, so you may have to use your keyboard arrows and the enter key to make selections until you get a GUI interface. Here's your text-based interface where the installation is going on. You want to install. You want to skip the test. So because the mouse won't be working at this point, you'll have to use your keyboard. Click the right arrow to go to the skip button and hit enter. So now you're going through the installation process. You have a GUI based installation. Click next. You want English. You want US English. You want basic storage. Take the defaults here. Here it's asking you whether for the virtual storage that you created, do you want to keep any data if it already had it, or you want to discard it. We want to use yes. Select yes to discard it, although it makes no difference here because it's a brand new storage. Now it's asking you for the host name of the computer or the virtual machine or the Linux operating system. We type in HT server here. You can also select the configure button, which launches this little dialog window. Select ETH0 and then select connect automatically. If you do this, when you launch your VM, it automatically connects to the same network that your host computer is on. Pick America, New York as the time zone. Root password. We want the root password to be root. So type in root and root. Let's all stick to the same root password for this class. Of course, when you click next, it's going to complain to you saying that it's too weak. You just say use anyway. Since you're creating a new VM, it should not matter whether you select use all spaces or replace existing spaces. Go ahead, select the replace existing space. It's asking you whether all the configuration changes you've done, it can write it to the disk, and you say yes, write changes to the disk. Now it's asking you what kind of virtual machine you want. Do you want a desktop version or a minimal desktop or a server? We want an SDK. We want the Java SDK. We want GCC, all those different things that developers need, all the different tools that the developers need. So we will choose Software Development Workstation as the option here. It's going through the installation process, and this step is going to take a long time. It may take 15-20 minutes depending upon what kind of hardware you have. Once you have gone through the installation, you have to reboot. The operating system is being rebooted. There is some post-installation process that you need to do. So it's showing you the welcome screen now. Accepting the license for the Linux operating system. Now it's asking you what is the username and password that you're going to be using to log in to the operating system. We want to call it hdadmin, so the username should be hdadmin and the password should be hdadmin. Confirm password is also hdadmin. This is the username and password that we will be using in order to log in to the workstation and launch Hadoop daemons and do all our programming and all the assignments and exercises in the class. Set the date and time correctly. You may get a warning indicating that there is insufficient memory to configure kernel dump. Don't worry about it. Just click finish to complete the installation. Say yes. Okay, so at this point it's rebooting the operating system. And voila, your operating system is installed. You can now readily log in as the hdadmin user. The password for that is hdadmin again, and you're ready to go. Once you log in, there's your desktop. You'll see some menu on the top. These are your workstations that you have, the different workspaces that you have. There's the menu. What I like to do is, since we'll be using a terminal a lot, I like to drag the terminal icon and paste the terminal icon over here on the toolbar so I can launch the terminal very easily. You can do similar thing for the file browser. Notice there's a browser also ready to go for you. We will later on install NetBeans or Eclipse so that we can do some software development. Java compiler, the JDK, and the GCC should be already installed, even though we're not going to be doing anything with GCC. It's a good idea to install guest editions so that you can take advantage of full screen and also some of these features where you can do port forwarding or sharing USB drives and sharing storage between the guest operating system and the host operating system. In order to do that, you should go to the VirtualBox menu on the top, select Devices, Install Guest Editions, and click OK. It's going to launch this dialog window. You hit OK, and then you say Run, and that is going to launch your guest edition installation in a terminal. But by the way, before it does that, it's going to ask you for your root ID, root password. So enter your root password as root, R-O-O-T, R-O-O-T. You'll go through the VirtualBox guest edition installation. In order for you to take advantage of the guest editions, it's a good idea to restart your VM. So shut down your VM and restart it. And voila, your installation is complete. Now you can configure VirtualBox for best host and guest communication performances. If you want to give more CPU or memory, all you need to do is shut down your VM, go to settings, and then this dialog window will be launched where you go to system. In the motherboard, you can say how much RAM you want it. Of course, we chose the default of 2 GB. You can also go to processor, which will take you to the processor section, where you can say how many processors you want for your VM. I have 8 CPUs, so I selected 4. I gave 4 to my VM. It all depends upon how many VMs you're running. For switching to full screen, select View Switch to Full Screen. You can also share folders between your host operating system and guest operating system. There's a whole series of installation that I've provided over here. There's the PPT, the PDF version of this slide presentation is available, so you can use these steps to share folders. I'm not going to be requiring you to do this, but if you want to do that, you're welcome to do it. You can also do port forwarding, so the instructions for that. Right, so let's do the actual installation at this point. So I'm going to launch VirtualBox. Here's VirtualBox. Close this, we don't need that. All right, click on New. What is the name of the virtual machine? I'm going to call it HD Server, which is Hadoop Server. I want it to be a Linux operating system, and I want it to be a Red Hat Linux operating system, 32-bit. It's important that you select 32-bit here. I want the RAM to be 2048, 2 GB. Click on that. Create a new storage drive. Select VDI, dynamically allocated storage. I want the hard drive capacity to be 20 GB. Of course, it's dynamically growing, so it doesn't really allocate the full space immediately. The VM is a shell VM. I need to mount the VM to a CD, which is the ISO CD, and then install the operating system. In order for me to do that, I right mouse click here and click on settings. Go to storage, click on empty on the CD, click here, choose. So this is where I'm going to go to the download and select my operating system. All right, it's mounted, hit OK. Now I'm going to power my VM. I can double click on it to power my VM. That launches the VM. There it is. The VM is launched. I may lose my mouse over here, so I'm going to use my keyboard. So I simply hit the enter to say that I'm installing Linux. It's going through the installation process. And this is going to be a long process. It'll take about 20 minutes to go through the entire installation. Once again, I've already lost my mouse, so I'm going to use my right arrow to go and click on skip because I want to skip the test and hit enter. Okay, so now I'm in the GUI installation mode. Click on next. Want English, of course US English, basic storage, yes, discard any data. This is where it's going to ask me the name of the Linux host name. I'm going to call it HD Server 2. Next, we want New York, that's my time zone. I want the password to be root. This is the root password. ROT. Next, use anyway. It's complaining me that it's weak. Password, that's fine. Replace existing. Write changes to the disk. I want software development workstation. Okay, so it's doing dependency check, and then it's going to install all the different packages that's necessary. Let's see how many packages we need. This is the portion of the installation that's going to take a long time. So there are about 1,500 packages that need to be installed. This may take about 10 to 15 minutes. I'm going to come back in a few minutes. Okay, so it has installed the packages. Let's go ahead and reboot. It's rebooting the operating system at this point. VirtualBox is really nice. It's actually showing you in this little window exactly what is going on in the VM. Okay, now this is the post-installation configuration. There's the welcome screen. You agree to the license agreement for Linux. Now it's asking you what is the username and password that you want to use to log in into your VM. Of course, there's the root username and root as the password, but this is the regular user. For Hadoop, we're going to use hdadmin. And then the password is going to be hdadmin also. Next, yes, password was weak. That's what it was pointing to. Make sure the date and time is right. Okay, this is where it's giving you the warning about the kernel dump. Just say yes. Don't worry about it. Now it's rebooting your VM. All the configuration changes have been done. So now when the VM comes up, you should be able to log in as hdadmin user ID and do whatever you want to do. Your VM is up. You want to log in with the password hdadmin. If you click here on the network, it'll connect the network for you. It's going to connect to the same network that your host computer is connected to. This is the menu. This is the toolbar for the operating system. Click on applications. Important tools like terminal is available right there. You can drag the terminal icon and place it over here because we will be using the terminal icon quite a lot for our programming. There it is. You can also exit from the terminal icon. There's also workspace. By default, there are 2 workspaces. You can right mouse click on it, change it to 4 workspaces, which is what I like. There are 4 workspaces. You should be able to launch a browser in one of the workspaces, switch to the other workspace, launch a terminal on the other one, skip to the other workspace, and maybe even launch something like a file browser so you can browse through the file system. And stop file system, that's the root file system. You can change how you see the files. You want to see the files as a list, which is a view that I like. So that's the root file system. Right. You can shift back and forth. So we're good to go. Now we want to install the guest additions. So let's go to devices. Okay. So when you said insert the disk, it already brought the disk over here. Click on auto run, run in terminal, put the root password, authenticate, and it's installing the guest additions at this point. It takes some time because it's actually going through the compilation process of some of the C modules. Okay, it's installed. We're good to go. So at this point, you have the CentOS Linux installed on top of VirtualBox. So in this section, I showed you how you can download CentOS, install it, and configure it to run on VirtualBox.